So recording now. And then to introduce our speaker, Christine Whitfield has been with the Ibero-American Action League since 2018, and there she currently serves as the Chief Administration Officer, where she oversees the operations of human resources, training, information technology, and facilities. And she has a Master's of Science in Human Resource Development from St. John Fisher College, as well as a Human Resources certification.
Hey everyone, happy Saturday. So I will tell you, I am not your typical HR person. I'm loud. It's Saturday. I don't know, I'm in upstate New York, and it's really sunny out, and we haven't seen sun in a very long time. So I'm just so happy to be here with you today, and I'm hoping that today's workshop is upbeat. And I will definitely leave time at the end for any questions that you guys may have. Before I share my screen, I do want to let you know I have two coworkers with me today at home in case they make an appearance. And that's my 4-year-old daughter and my Chihuahua. So just in case, I think they're settled, but I just wanted to put that out there so no one was alarmed of any special guests. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we will get started. Can everyone see that okay? Perfect. All right. So as David and Isabel mentioned in the introduction, what we really want to discuss here today is what's going on in job offer letters. What should we be looking for? You know, when it comes to employee benefits, you know, what is the employer required to offer to me? What's kind of standard industry, and what's kind of like, you know, an extra layer or a bonus in which they can give me. And I really felt it was important at the end to talk a little bit about pay equity and what that is, and how you should really just pay attention to that as you're moving through your career. So let's dig in. So I thought it was first important just to kind of go over just the agenda. What are some of the topics that I felt were really important to bring up to you today? So first, we're just going to start talking a little bit about what an offer letter is. For anyone who has not seen it, I do have a visual that I'll share with the group. Some things that you should pay attention to within that job offer letter are definitely dates and times, job responsibilities, salary, confidentiality, or non-disclosure agreements, what at-will employment means, and that may have a different meaning by the state that you're in, benefit types, eligibility, and then we'll end with pay equity. So I just wanted to provide everyone with just a brief notice. I wouldn't be an HR person if I didn't put this notice out in advance. So obviously all of the fun things we're going to be talking about today are all based on my own experience as I've been navigating through my career. I would not be able to provide any legal advice, you know, to anyone. And I just want to put it out there that at any part, you know, in your career, as you're navigating through any employment offer, if there's anything that you feel is unlawful, you know, you definitely want to seek counsel by an employment law attorney. Okay, so what is an offer letter? So I know I can't see everyone, but I'm opening it up to the group. How many of you have actually seen one? What's an offer letter? Why do you think an employer would give that to you? Feel free to unmute yourselves. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Okay, fine.
So I have,
okay.
Sharon. You got it. You got
it. No, you go, Sharon. No, you go. No, you go first. Oh my God.
Okay. So an offer letter, I have seen one, and it is an offer of employment. So I think it's important to give, because even if employment is extended to you, it is a negotiation. Like, you have the option to either say yes to taking this job, or you can say no. So knowing the terms in which you're agreeing to take the job and the benefits that you will get from being employed at that job is super important. So that's an offer letter.
Nice. Yes, absolutely. Anyone else have any other thoughts on it?
That was very eloquent, Sharon. I just said for myself, I was like, oh, they want me. So then I'll see what they're offering. But you nailed it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think you both did. I think you both did. I love how Sharon said the negotiation. That stuck out for me. We're definitely going to be talking about that today. And if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Marab? Okay, wonderful. I love how Mirab said, they want me. I love that. I love that. I love both pieces of your answers. So this is, our textbook definition. So an offer letter is a notice in a written form that informs the candidate that they have been selected. It's a formal letter that often includes the details of employment, start date, benefits, and most importantly, what those terms of employment are. Wonderful. All right. So I thought it was really important to actually show everyone what does a sample, job offer letter look like. Obviously, this may change based on the employer. They normally in this top area, will put their logo, whatever their logo is. I've also seen them include the name of their chief, executive officer, usually on the top there. It would have a date, it would be addressed to you. It should clearly state what your job title is so that you know what it is that you're being hired for. It should include the name of your supervisor and their job title, so you can start to get an idea of what the hierarchy is within the organization. It should include your salary. This sample has it listed annually, but it should be listed in the form in which your job title is being considered. So are you being, paid by the hour in which you'd be eligible for overtime pay? Or is the job classified as an exempt position, which means that you would be paid at a salary and that would not, classify you, or you would not qualify, for overtime hours. Schedule is always key, right? They've chosen you, you have to make plans, right? So whether you're going to school or you have other responsibilities, they should be letting you know so that you can make planning. The other thing that's not in this example, but I think is just so key for the times that we're in now, is they should be giving you some form of idea as far as, are you going to be working from home? Is it going to be a hybrid model where you'll be going into the office a few days and you'll be working from home a few days? I just think that's so key, especially now with what the workforce is looking like. Definitely your start date and the start time. Your normal schedule here is 8:30, but maybe on the first day they want you to come in at 9 or 9:30, depending on what they have planned on the day for you. There should be some information in there in reference to the conditional offer of employment, right? So the employer will extend you an offer, but there's usually some form of checks that they have to do before they can kind of seal the deal and say, you're official, you're on board with us, right? And really those checks are going to depend on the type of role and oversight you're going to have. It may be a background check, it may be a credit check. They should have already completed reference checks. Even in some roles, and I've seen this a lot within human service roles where you're working under an oversight agency, there may be fingerprinting involved, there may be a physical involved, or a PPD, which checks to see if you have tuberculosis or if you've had it in the past. So really that's going to be dependent on the employer. There should definitely be within that letter something that lets you know anything else in reference to the job. If there's a sign-on bonus, what is that amount? When will you receive it? If this is an employer in which you're going to be working in a union type environment, what do those details look like? It really needs to be specific to that job. And most importantly, that signature on the bottom. I'm going to put another question out to the group. Why do you think they want you to sign it on the bottom?
So you read the whole thing?
So they know, that's right. That's right. So they know that you read the whole thing.
And you signed it and you said, okay, I read it and I'm committing to all of this.
That's right. That's right. So you are accepting, right? You're saying, I understand what it is you're conditionally offering to me, and I'm going to sign it, and that will go in your personnel file. Lovely. I'm going to pause there. I know we went over a lot of things as far as this template. Did anyone have any questions about any part of it before we go into some specifics? Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and move forward. Oh. Am I having computer difficulties already? Okay, there we go. All right, so let's look first at date and times. So you noticed in the template that there was a start date that was clear, but there's some other key details that if they're not listed in the offer letter, they definitely should be a point of conversation within your orientation period or even before that. I know within my HR team at Ibero, we have candidates who reach out to us to ask us about these things in advance because it may sway them signing the paperwork, or they just want to have the opportunity to ask those questions. So we talked about start date, but let's talk about benefit eligibility and start date. So each organization is set up very differently, right? As far as the types of benefits in which they've chosen to provide to their staff. They have set up with their benefit providers when that eligibility will kick in for new employees. So what does that mean? It means that they have a plethora of benefits, but sometimes you have to wait a certain amount of time before you're eligible to be able to participate in health insurance, dental insurance, so on and so forth, even down to what form of retirement plan that they have. So that definitely is a key question that you want to ask them. You want to know, when is it? For example, at Ibero, where I currently work, it is effective for new employees the first of the month after 30 days of employment. So that's something we actually outline to them in their new hire document. Probationary period. A probationary period basically means that there is a period of time in which the employer has said, you have to work with us this amount of time before another set of benefits kick in. This in more than most organizations, this would be your ability to request and or use any paid time off. We'll get into paid time off more in additional slides, but basically it's an opportunity for you to take a vacation and take some time off and still have your salary covered for that amount of time. Job responsibilities. So this is another section of really the entire offer package, right? The offer letter itself, that's going to give you your job title, what your schedule is, and who's going to be supervising you. But what document do you think the employer can give you that will really give you key details about these job responsibilities? Does anybody know what that term is called? What that document is called? It's also something you would sign. I'll give you a hint. It's a 2-word document, and the first word is job. And the second word starts with a D.
Job description?
Yes, Sharon. Spot on. Yes, a job description, right? So your offer letter gives a summary of the job, but your job description actually has all of the details of the job in addition to what's on that offer letter. So it'll list your essential functions, what skills and abilities they look for in someone that they're looking for to fill that role, if there's any physical demands within the job, what competencies, what level of authority you'll have, and you'll sign that as well. And you'll more than likely see that document with an offer letter when you receive an offer package from an employer. All right, so let's go back to job responsibility, specifically with the offer letter. If you're reading through either one of those documents and anything in there is not clear, don't sign it. Pick up the phone, contact that human resources contact that you've spoken to, and ask your question. As we spoke before, you're signing it because you're sealing the deal, because you accept the offer in which they're giving to you. So you want to make sure you're clear on anything that's listed in any part of the documents, right? So you want to make sure you walk away with saying, I understand what I'm accountable for. Everything's been clearly outlined. And I'm also comfortable asking any questions about the essential functions. And essential functions are basically the duties that are involved day to day that are required of someone who does that particular job. So feel free to ask any questions, anything that you're not clear about. Sally.
Christine, can I ask a question
Yes,
in this moment
absolutely.
on the question front?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Sharon.
Thank you. So I'm wondering, something that I often see on job descriptions is other duties as assigned. And I feel very uncomfortable with that one line. So I'm wondering, how in HR do you navigate the parameters of those duties as assigned before I am doing a job that I did not sign a contract for?
That's hilarious. So I'm laughing first because we have that in our job descriptions in our agency. We have it worded a little bit differently. I think it's something to the effect of any other duties as described or assigned by the supervisor. That's definitely key, and I like that you brought that up. A lot of organizations really list that because they create these job descriptions based on, this is what someone in this role would need to be able to do to be successful. But jobs evolve. You know, I may have an HR generalist have listed a certain amount of essential functions, and as I keep growing my team and they keep developing, I may be adding things. But I need some kind of leeway to say, as they're growing and they're developing, I'm going to add on different duties. And once that they become really proficient in it, and that's going to be something that I expect in future HR generalists, then I need to update that job description. One thing that employers really need to commit to is reviewing job descriptions, not just at the time that you need to post for a job. It needs to be reviewed with any employee in their annual review, right? It needs to be reviewed with them. You need to remind. I mean, I'm going to put this out there to the group. How many of you know every single bullet point on your job description? Come on, right? You know what you do every day, but to know exactly what it is, it needs to be reviewed so you know what it is that you're being appraised on. So for me, I can speak only for Ibero. That is why we have that bullet point at the end of our job description, at the end of the essential functions section. Did I answer your question? Okay, perfect. All right. So let's transition to talk about salary within that offer letter. Salary is key. I spoke a little bit about it earlier, and it needs to be really clear as far as how you're going to be compensated. I've even seen employers go to the point to mention the frequency of how often you're going to be paid. I think that's something key to know as well. Is it on a weekly basis? Is it bi-weekly? Or is it bi-monthly, which means that I'll be getting a paycheck 2 times a month? True story. That was fun planning bills out, right? But I needed to know that up front, right? So you need to make sure that what's in that offer letter confirms what your conversation was with them. When they gave you a call or they offered it to you on a virtual call, however it was, the same rate that they extended that offer to you before you even get your paperwork, make sure that that is listed the same. So if they told you an hourly rate, make sure it's listed there with how many hours. If they extended it to you in the salary form, make sure that number is the same. How often is payroll? And make sure again that an FLSA is Fair Labor Standards Act. I won't bore you with legal things, but just to say that that is the way that employers classify employees' pay. And do the math if you need to, right? So if they mentioned it to you, the rate on an hour, per hour rate, and you're going to be working 40 hours a week, get out your calculator, do the math. There's 52 weeks in a year, and make sure that that is, coming out exactly what it needs to be. You have the right to do all of those things before you sign any of that paperwork. Confidentiality and non-disclosure agreements. Another question for the group. What do you think sensitive information is? What does it sound like? What do you think it is? And why do you think an employer would want to talk to you about that?
Like data related to employer clients or like the employer itself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What if I work for an IT company, an IT development company at that? We probably have a lot of secrets, right? Let's talk about Apple for a moment, right? I'm pretty sure everyone down to the receptionist that works in that company is signing some form of confidentiality and or non-disclosure agreement, right? So each company has a different definition of what that information is. And it's really going to change based on where you work. In HR, sensitive information is the information of our employees. Anything from where they live, their social security number, their date of birth, even down to their medical information or what accommodations they may need. That's in my world, that's what sensitive information is, right? So that is nothing for, the HR team to be able to share and or, use that against anyone, right? So we are required in a very restricted way to keep that information locked, and as well as, our office, locked as well, right? So every company is going to view information that's sensitive in a different way, right? So they're going to let you know that up front. Any paperwork that you are signing as a part of your employment offer, they're going to be letting you know what that is. They also should be letting you know what could happen if you don't keep it confidential. So what if you leave Apple and you start telling Samsung all of their secrets? What's going to happen? And then how do you play it safe? The easiest way to keep it safe is to follow exactly what they've instructed you to do to keep that information confidential so that you don't run into any type of situation that could go that way. At-will employment. Every state is going to be different when it comes to at-will employment. For example, I'm in New York State, and New York is an at-will employment state. But every state is different. What does at-will employment mean? It basically means that an employer can dismiss an employee at any time for any reason, as long as it is not any form of discrimination, retaliation, so on and so forth. And I will tell you from the employer side, it's very heavy policy and procedure driven. So if it is in reference to disciplinary action, the disciplinary action process has to be followed, obviously, unless it's something extreme. But the same thing applies for an employee. You're entitled to leave an employer at any time, regardless of the reason. And this is something that you'll want to look out for within that letter as well. I know that's something that's a line that we have in our offer letters as well. So before we get into benefits, I wanted to pause to see if anyone had any other questions about the different components of the offer letter. I was going to say, I think you guys got it.
Oh,
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, so like I accepted 2 offers for the same time.
Mm-hmm.
One later because I was like, okay, I'm gonna take this. Something better comes, I'll take that. But yeah, so now, but like, and I read like I have the at will,
Mm-hmm.
but then like I don't know like how do I like break that? Because I'm actually currently working part time. How do I talk to my manager about that? Because I do like my manager, but I did get a better offer.
Okay. Okay. Do you meet with your manager for like a one-on-one meetings, like maybe every week, every other week?
Yeah, like every 3 weeks.
Okay, perfect. First off, I'm applauding your employer for doing that. There's a lot of organizations that don't take time to meet with their staff one-on-one. We call them supervision meetings. So that's awesome. I'm happy to hear your employer's doing that. I think that would be the perfect opportunity if time will allow you. I know you have that new offer and you probably have to respond to them. How long are they giving you? 48 hours?
I already accepted it. Now I'm just like,
so it's the resignation conversation. And am I
yeah.
pronouncing your name correctly? Is this Swagata?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So you're having that resignation conversation. Okay, so that's a change. So I would just ask your manager, you have a moment for me today. I had to, talk through something with you. And when you're meeting with them, I would just let them know. You want to first off put it in writing. So you want to have a letter prepared to be able to give to them. I'm pretty sure the agency requires that to be in writing, and they probably are going to request a certain amount of time for you to work before you depart. I would say usually an industry standard is usually about 2 weeks, depending on your role. Sometimes if you're in a leadership role, maybe 3 or 4 weeks. So I would just check out your employee handbook to make sure that you provide them with that time. But I would just let them know that you've appreciated everything that they have done for you, but unfortunately you regret to inform them that you are submitting your official resignation from your position. You want to go ahead and hand them the letter. The letter will outline the date that you're giving them the notice and what your actual last date will be. And then you sign it. At that point, they should be, their human resources department should be reaching out to you to discuss any exiting procedures they have in place. An exit interview, if it was a position in which you had any form of accrued time and you're eligible to receive a payout, they would talk about that. Any company equipment, that you may have, they'll talk through all that process.
Okay.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about benefits. So in this presentation, I thought it would be helpful to break up the benefits in 3 separate categories, just so you can kind of get an idea of what is required by law by the employer, what are standard, industry type benefits, and then what are some add-ons, some things that they can add on to maybe make themselves look better to any applicants looking to apply within their organization. So let's talk first about those that are required by law. So that's going to be your Social Security and Medicare contributions that is required, your workers' compensation insurance. So in the event that you injure yourself within employment and you submit a workers' compensation claim, the employer is required to, pay you for any lost time. Minimum wage, dependent on the area in which you're in, every state has a different minimum wage level or rate. So they are required to pay you at least at minimum wage. And if you are in a position in which you qualify for overtime pay, they are required to give that to you as well. Unemployment compensation contributions, this would be in the event that you are maybe temporarily laid off, or you exit from your position and you are applying and are approved for unemployment insurance benefits. They would also be responsible for paying that to unemployment. you know, that in turn unemployment would be compensating you. If the employer has over 50 employees, they have to provide health insurance and Family Medical Leave Act, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But Family Medical Leave Act is basically an opportunity, or FMLA as a lot of organizations call it, is an opportunity for you to apply for unpaid leave for up to 12 weeks within a 12-month period to protect your job. So for them to hold it. If you're going to be out for medical reasons, you would have to apply for disability as well. That is the compensated piece of a medical leave, but we'll get into those specifics. So that is the list that is required by law by the employer. So then there's your standard. This list probably looks a little bit more familiar. So health insurance, family medical leave, retirement savings, some form of paid time off, life insurance. They may offer you stock options, even voluntary benefits. And voluntary benefits basically means that it's in addition to any other plan, voluntary benefits are more than likely 100% paid for by the employee, but offered by the employer. Just to give you some examples, within my agency, we offer vision as a voluntary benefit. We have coverage through a company called VSP. They are so reasonable. I want to say an employee pays maybe $4 a month for vision coverage. For a family, I want to say maybe it's $10. And then we also offer voluntary benefits in extension to any medical insurance that they have through a company called Unum. So if they are looking for extra accidental insurance, if they happen to be out on a leave, or if they end up having a critical illness, they would receive some form of compensation by choosing this coverage. And the other one that I missed there is disability insurance. So this would be something that would be offered by the employer as well, either on a short-term basis or on a long-term basis. Then there's what they consider to be fringe. So these are your extra layers of coverage that an employer tries to throw in to make themselves look really good. So there's wellness programs, employee assistance programs. They may throw in an identity theft prevention coverage. If you're in a position where you are relocating from one location to the next, they may offer you some form of package there. They may have an option for tuition reimbursement or student loan repayment programs. They may have a full list of discounts for employees that work with them. Telecommuting and work from home options is huge right now within a lot of organizations as well. So employers really try to make their fringe look very attractive to their incoming workforce to try to seal that deal with any offers of employment. I wanted to pause there. I know we went over a lot of information about benefits. I hear from a lot of people that benefits is one of those areas of HR that's kind of boring. But does anyone have any questions about anything that we covered in reference to the benefits? Okay. All right. So we will keep moving. Okay. So eligibility. This is something that I wanted to go over as well. Oh, sorry about that, guys. So eligibility. We talked a little bit about this with the probationary period and the benefits earlier on in the presentation, but I definitely felt it was important to bring this up again. So when you're out looking for your roles, you may be applying for a full-time job or a part-time job. And depending on the number of hours that you work per week, that will then say by the employer standards what you'll be eligible for, right? So what is your status? Are you considered part-time with benefits? Are you considered full-time? Or do you work less than, let's say, 30 hours, so you're considered a part-time employee? Or are you considered what they call per diem or as needed employee, right? So it's all going to depend on how many hours a week you may work. It may also be dependent on when you were hired. So are you eligible for those benefits within 30 days? Is it immediate? Can you enroll in their retirement plan immediately? Or do you have to wait until a certain amount of time to do that? And then once you're enrolled, what happens to your contributions? Are they fully vested into the account after 1 or 2 years of a contribution? Or is it more like a tiered model, right? Where it's going to take a few years for those contributions and any that the employer offers to you for them to be available to you. So eligibility is definitely another thing that you want to look out for as well when it comes to those offers. Equal work deserves equal pay. Let's talk about that pay equity. Pay equity is huge. It is a growing conversation within many organizations. It is definitely something that is getting a closer look, just really from the employer side, really to protect the agency from any risk when it comes to pay. You know, you want to make sure that your organization has a concrete compensation system via pay grades, that all of those pay grades are easily defined to each of the employees that work within the organization, and that it's assessed, you know, every 1 to 2 years to be able to make sure that they are remaining equitable within what is going on within their areas. So pay equity itself is the practice of mitigating employee wage inequalities based on race, gender, and other criteria. So basically, again, not going into a lot of what's written here, it is basically saying that whether we have an accountant and it is a female or it is a male, they need to be doing the same, they need to be paid the same exact wage. And that we should be looking at solely their experience and their education. Oh, it looks as though my slide went there. Excuse me for one moment, folks. My coworker came a-calling. So it is so important within nowadays for you to know what's involved when it comes with your pay. Do your research, and you definitely want to know what is the going rate when it comes to the type of work that you're going to be doing. So prior to accepting that job, do your research. These are some websites that I have found helpful. Salary.com, Glassdoor, PayScale, Indeed, Salary List, Salary Expert, Bureau of Labor Statistics is huge. I'm also going to throw in there just your state's Department of Labor, or if your state or area has any workforce development organizations within your area. You know, so I'm thinking of any centers that assist those that have been recently laid off or looking for a career change. They also would have great information, but do your research. It's definitely important to give them a range, right? So if you're in an interview and they have asked you, you know, what are you looking for as far as pay? And because I just am familiar with training, you're more than likely going to respond by saying it is negotiable. And because they have a budget that they have to go by, and there's a range that they more than likely have in play, they are more than likely going to come back to you and say, well, can you provide me with a range? And you're like, right? So this is what I have said to people that I've talked to about, this particular negotiation piece. If you're saying it's negotiable, you want to make sure that it's negotiable within terms that are healthy for you, right? So I usually ask people, you got rent, you got a car payment, right? Or whatever other financial responsibilities you have, do the math. If it's truly negotiable, then you can stick with that. But if there is a certain amount in which you need to be in order to continue with your financial responsibilities, give them a range. If the role is a salary, give them a few thousand in between, usually a good 5,000 and 7,000 in between. So I'm looking between 35 and 40, 40 and 45. Or if it's a job that's going to be paying you by the hour, I'm looking anywhere from 18 to 22. But do your research. That's where that research comes in, because when they say, what are you looking for? Well, based on the research I've done, based on my skill set, experience, and education, the range that I found for this role in this area is from here to here, right? Because you're going to want to compare it from apples to apples. Is this a nonprofit organization? Is this corporate? Because that's going to come into play as well. But you definitely want to do your research. You have your right to negotiate that salary and or the benefits. So let's say they're a nonprofit and they can't give you more money, but can they negotiate your time off or your reporting structure? Can you do hybrid? Can you do some telecommuting? Is there any negotiation with your hours? Right? So there's definitely, other ways to negotiate, and you won't know until you ask. All right? And even after you get the job, continue to do your research. Continue to do your homework, because you also don't want to get this job and then stay in that salary for the next 10 years, right? So that's really a good way for you to check in to see if your organization is continuing to do their homework, continuing to make themselves a good employer, for new people that may be looking for employment with them. So the work definitely doesn't stop there after you've gotten that job. Okay. Because we're talking about pay equity, and because we are talking about just knowing your worth, I wanted to share a TED Talk with you today. I do have a question to the facilitator though. Would they be able to hear my sound?
Yes, they should be able to hear your sound once you play it.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I'll look for nods of heads. You guys let me know if you can or can't. If for some reason you can't hear the sound, I can definitely share the link. So here we go. Oh, you're not going to be nice to me today. There we go.
I'm the mother of two beautiful little girls who depend upon me. I'm a single mom. What if my business fails? What if
Christine, I can hear your sound, but I can't see. I don't know if it's just me. I can't see the actual video.
Okay, hold on.
If you want to show the video, you have to unshare and then share that screen.
What problems do I solve for clients?
Let me stop
What value
sharing.
do I add?
Bear with me 1 second.
I answered these questions.
Great.
Okay. There we go. I think I got it now. Okay. Okay. Can you see it now? Perfect. All
Yep.
right. Now, let me figure out rewinding it. There we go.
No one will ever pay you what you're worth. No one will ever pay you what you're worth. They'll only ever pay you what they think you're worth. And you control their thinking. Not like this, although that would be cool. That would be really cool. Instead, like this. Clearly define.
Oh, the sound went out.
It's got universal applicability. It's true if you're a business owner, if you're an employee, if you're a job seeker. It's true if you're a man or a woman. Now, I approach this today through the lens of the woman business owner, because in my work, I've observed that women underprice more so than men.
Oh, we were doing so good. Here goes my internet.
Try pausing the video.
Okay. Let's see.
I was paused.
Oh, it's going so good, friend.
Well, bring it back a couple seconds and then see if it like.
Okay. Okay.
That would be cool. That would be cool. That would be really cool. Instead, like this. Clearly defining and communicating your value are essential to being paid well for your excellence. Anyone here want to be paid well? Okay, good. Then this talk is for everyone. It's got universal applicability. It's true if you're a business owner, if you're an employee, if you're a job seeker. It's true if you're a man or a woman. Now, I approach this today through the lens of the woman business owner, because in my work, I've observed that women underprice more so than men.
Oh no. I'm going to give it one more try, guys. If not, we'll go straight to questions and I can share the link with Terry.
Yeah, that'll work. So we'll try again.
Paid well for your excellence. Anyone here want to be
Hopefully
paid well?
third time's the charm.
Okay, good. Then this talk is for everyone. It's got universal applicability. It's true if you're a business owner, if you're an employee, if you're a job seeker. It's true if you're a man or a woman. Now, I approach this today through the lens of the woman business owner, because in my work, I've observed that women underprice more so than men.
All right.
So we tried. So.
We did. We definitely did. It just didn't work. I will definitely share that link with you all so that you have it. But my next slide was just going to open it up for any questions anyone had.
Yeah, I have a question about there's like a HSA option where like I guess you can like contribute to like a health savings account. So like, should you do that or no?
Great question. So when it comes to medical benefits, dependent on the type of plan that you've chosen, you may be eligible to contribute to a health savings account. So when an employer is offering you health insurance, they have a lot of plans. And really, you can either choose a plan that may be a little bit more expensive, but you only have to pay a copay when you go to the doctors, or get some form of service. Or you may choose what's called a high deductible health plan, where your preventative services like a physical, you know, that's 100% covered. But if it's maybe a doctor's visit, you would actually pay out of pocket until you get to a certain amount, which is called your deductible, until, you know, your insurance, you know, kicks in. So the cool thing about a health savings account is that if you're enrolled in a high deductible health plan, you'd be eligible to put money into that health savings account every pay period. Not taxed, and the money rolls over. So if you had a good year health-wise and you were just putting into that account, employers can also choose to contribute to a health savings account as well. I know at Ibero we do that. We give the employees the options and we contribute as well throughout the year. And that's your money to use for health, you know, related needs. So it rolls over. And the other great thing about it too is that if one day you leave your current employer and you go to another one, that's still your money to be able to use, you know, for co-pays, medications, anything, physical therapy. I've even, there's even, you know, over-the-counter type medication that has been approved that's considered to be HSA eligible. On the flip side of that, let's say that I chose that health plan where I pay a little bit more, but when I go to the doctor, I pay less. Those folks have an opportunity to enroll in what's called a flexible spending account. Works a little bit different. You can't, well, let me take that back. You can roll over up to 500 to the next year. But if you have more than that in there, you can't roll it over. And you would use it for the same purposes. So let's say you wanted to use it for a copay or some, you know, any other medical expense, you could do that. What I have seen as far as trends, at least in my area, I've actually seen a rise in enrollments in high deductible health plans. But really the choice is yours. And I would just say to do your research when it's time for you to sign up for the benefits. If there's any questions that the HR department cannot answer for you, ask them if you can speak to a rep from the coverage. They should be willing and able to answer any questions that you may have about enrolling in both. And it's super important because when you enroll, that enrollment is good for the year unless you hit what they call a qualifying event. You know, so unless you lose coverage, you get married, you have a child, you know, you lose someone in the family, you have to keep that coverage until it's time for you to enroll again for the next year. So definitely want to ask your questions. I know that was really long. Did that answer your question?
It was a great answer. So I'm going to piggyback on that. Yeah. FSA versus HSA. Yeah. It's important to actually do it pre-tax dollars for HSA, right?
Absolutely.
You can see and like pay for whatever delivery that your insurance doesn't cover. Again, research your insurance, right? Find out what they actually will cover. But HSA, you will have more money. FSA, it will not roll over. Yeah. Sorry, I had to chime in.
I love it.
All right.
Love it.
Listen, dude, get your offer right and like ask those good questions. Yeah. Very important. We're young, but also we'll get sick, I think.
I love it. All right. Any other questions?
So, Raja, did you have a follow-up question? I see you're still unmuted. I want to give you.
No, I'm good.
Cool. Christine, I'm wondering, you mentioned how obviously COVID has affected telecommuting benefits in that sense. I'm wondering if you're seeing any other changes or trends in like the negotiation conversation or the benefits conversation given what we're going through.
So we've actually seen not too much in benefits. Where we have been moving pretty quickly is on the recruitment end. So a lot of employers are opening up. It's not, you know, maybe 6-9 months ago where, you know, a lot of organizations were shut down. So the company that I work for, we didn't shut down at all. We transitioned to working remotely for some time, but we had a portion of our workforce that works in a residential setting. So they continue to report every day, for the past 12 months. So, from our end, the support to them, because they're the front line, never stopped. But on the recruitment end, oh my God, like if we don't move those offers, references quickly, we've been losing people just because so many things are opening up. And I think that's huge for this conversation, because you want to make sure you ask your questions, because you really do have your options, especially now. The workforce is going in the right direction, with so many, jobs opening up every week, and the rate of unemployment decreasing, week after week after week. So it's definitely your time. The ball is in your court. So you definitely want to ask those questions so you're making the best fit. I'm telling you, we've been running, trying to make sure we're getting people in that we want. I'll say sadly, I want to say within the last month, there were 2 candidates that we loved for 2 positions, one in IT and one in facilities. And so sad, we were like turtles, really slow, or the tortoise, really, really slow, and we lost them. I was like, oh, don't tell me we lost them. They were a perfect fit, especially for culture wise. So we definitely want to move it fast.
I have more questions if other folks don't.
Yeah,
Wanting to hear things from your perspective, your side of the table, Christy. I'm wondering, I don't know if you've worked in corporate HR, but I think, is Ibero a nonprofit?
We're a community-based organization in upstate New York. We've been around for going on 52 years. We're very well known within the Latino community. That's kind of how we came about 51 years ago, but we serve everyone. And we definitely pride ourselves on being able to say that we can serve clients from birth to retirement. So we have a senior center, we have a daycare, we have a residential area, and then we have a radio station too. Like, we're all over the place. That's why I get all these gray hairs. But as far as corporate America, it's been a while since I've worked in corporate. My career, even prior to Ibero, has been, I don't know, my heart is always with human service. So I've been there at least the last 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah, in that sense, I was wondering about the differences in maybe the approach to the conversation about negotiation and benefits in like the corporate versus the nonprofit space.
Right.
As someone who is currently a nonprofit and looking to jump corporate, but you may not have the most up-to-date insight on that. Although I believe you also could.
I think corporate may have, just because, they're for-profit, they may have more funding available. They may not be grant funded or, funded by some form of oversight agency like Medicaid, where, every year, we're at the mercy of, state funders or grants. So they may have some more flexibility as far as what they're able to negotiate. A nonprofit, sometimes we're at the mercy of those funders. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. So I was just wondering, how does like relocation affects like salary determination? Like, do employers once you relocate, they're like, oh, okay, we have to renegotiate the salary or something like that?
Great question. So that really is going to be dependent on the employer. That's considered one of those fringe benefits. So they would have to put that out there in advance to say that they're willing to offer that. I actually had a candidate about a year ago. We were looking to fill a space on our executive leadership team. We had a great candidate, but they were in New York City and we were in Rochester, which is about, I don't know, probably 7 hours away. And they asked me, being a community-based organization, what the relocation fee was. And I looked in an empty wallet. I was like, oh, we don't have one. I was so embarrassed. And am I pronouncing it correctly? Is it Sebel? Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay. I was so embarrassed because we just, weren't able to do that. But we also were so shocked that we had an applicant from a totally different area. And they were just so well qualified. So my recommendation to you would be, if you don't see any of that information in the job posting, I would reach out and ask before even applying, because, you wouldn't want to go through a situation similar to what we went through where, I mean, this person was pre-screened and everything, and we didn't end up having that relocation conversation until later on. And, it wasn't something we were able to do.
And thank you again for the question. So we have around 4 minutes left, but I do have a question that came up a lot when I talk to my scholars, and it comes around negotiating. So I know the scholars ask, so you can provide advice because typically this will be their first job, and they're like, well, I'm afraid I, won't get any more if I, want to negotiate this price, and they say, well, they can't offer it, and I don't get the job. So what kind of advice can you give to scholars on like how that negotiation kind of give them the fear of like negotiating their worth?
So basically, there's a dollar amount that you want, but you think it's too high. So you think I shouldn't, say that to the employer in the event that they may not consider me for, that position. I will tell you 2 things. If you are way too high, we will turn away. If it is just, out there and we're like I'll give you guys an example. I interviewed someone for a director position last week, and the position is in the capital region because we have an office out there in Albany. And when we asked the individual what they wanted, 120,000, like nothing. And I said, is there any negotiation with that? Dying inside. No, 120. We're a community-based organization. That was so high. So with her, she didn't even give us a range, right? So if an employer says to you, is there any negotiation with that? That means they like you and they want to know, is there any negotiation? So that should be your cue to say, I need to give them a range. Don't stick with just one number. Now, even if she told me 100 to 120, we still couldn't have made that happen. But that's where doing your research is huge. To me, she gave me a number that she wanted. She didn't do research on what we're all about and what a community-based organization, like what does a director in a community-based organization make? She was just shooting out a number. So that's where that research piece is huge, and looking for those signs. So if they say no too quickly, they're like, all right, they're turned off. They're turned off, they're going to the next person. But if they come back and ask you if there's any negotiation, they are interested in you. So you want to start singing that song that they want to hear. The other thing, and I know we're going to end soon, is remember, negotiation doesn't end after you have that job. So another part of the conversation you could do is, can we revisit this? Maybe after 6 months, can you look at my performance, after the first 3 months? If I successfully pass my probationary period, could we possibly have a conversation down the line? So it doesn't end there. And you just want to do your research when you're having those conversations.
That was one of your first points. Read the contract. How can we read it? We can read it, and then what's going to happen in a month, 2 months, 3 months? Let's go back and revisit it.
Right.
not end all be all. Let's talk about that before you sign that contract, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know we're going back to the main room. Before we go, I just want to say you guys were awesome. Thank you
You're
so
awesome.
much for a great workshop today. You guys were fabulous. You'll get my email address if you have any questions, okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll see
Before
you in
everyone,
the other
before
room.
everyone goes, before everyone goes, we have a couple seconds left. We do want to get a picture. So if you guys can turn your cameras on for this last part, we got a couple seconds left.
Oh, Jim, I while we're doing this, am I ready? Okay. Let's see if I try.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. All right, thank you.
Let me.
You're welcome.
I'm not unmuted. Oh my God.
And again, Christine,